Uh, Colleagues, 20 years ago, we all had an experience with 9/11. I was 15, starting my junior year, and coming back into class, I saw a large fire. And anytime I saw a large fire, one that would be big enough for TV, I immediately thought about my dad. Because any fire that big, my dad was going to be on site. But very quickly, I realized that it was New York City. And like many of you, we all sat and watched. We sat and watched as firefighters and police officers helped people get out of these buildings. We saw some people go back in. We saw a second plane hit the towers. We saw them fall. And I don't know how it felt for you, but it was an experience that you couldn't look away from and you didn't know how to process. And that whole time, it was this constant feeling of, what should I be doing? How should it be done? What's next? You know, we thought about things like, should we still have football that week? Should we still have homecoming games? The president stood out and said, hey, the only way you don't let the terrorists win is by being Americans, by standing up and doing the things that you were already planning to do. And we did. And people enlisted, they signed up for the military, they did things that they had not already planned on, and then people's plans changed completely. My plans changed completely. But in those moments, we thought we were going to go do this thing and it would be over. And 20 years later, even though our troops have left Afghanistan, even though the war in Iraq is over, the war on terrorism isn't, and it's only growing. My reserve unit is talking about where we go, and for the last almost 10 years, we've been CENTCOM aligned, which meant that if anything ever happened in the Middle East, that's where we go. As these targets shift, as these problems shift, the war on terrorism isn't ending, it's not decreasing, it's not degrading. Where we're going is moving. But our soldiers are still deployed and still engaged in these types of moments. But one of the things that we often forget when we think about 9/11 is that it was so much about the first responders who responded that day and continue to do so. The firefighters, the police officers, the EMTs, the nurses, all of the folks who on one day had the experience of a lifetime and are still grappling with how they deal with those moments. The trauma that we've all been trying to deal, that most of us just saw on TV. Imagine living with it. One of my college friends, her aunt was supposed to be on one of those planes. And to this day, she still has a framed copy of her ticket for the plane she missed. You know, we know stories in here of friends who were late for work that day and as a result are here today in ways that they wouldn't. The survivor's remorse, the guilt. All of those things are things that we continue to have to deal with, but we can only address by doing the work. And when we talk about what that work is, it's taking care of the people who have taken care of us for the last 20 years. My college roommate works for the State Department and is engaged in doing just that work. And I always talk about him because I'm proud of him. I'm proud that he's dedicated his life to us and that our diplomatic corps are going to play such an important role as we continue this global war on terrorism, as we continue this work, and that so much of that work is taking care of the allies who have supported us, the translators, their family members, all of those folks who are looking for a new home. And Michigan should be one of those places. We should be opening our arms to the people who, on our worst day, after the moment where we all said, never again, stood up at great personal risk to be a part of defending our freedom, to be a part of making sure that attacks on our soil never happened again. Those are the people who today we should be thinking about. We should remember all the folks who have been deployed in this work to protect us, but most importantly, we should be thinking about what we can do to serve others, to serve the folks who have stood up and in any number of ways put themselves in front of us, to put their families on hold to take care of us, to protect us, to ensure that we are taken care of. And so, colleagues, I ask that as we think about this 20th anniversary of 9/11, we think not just about the sacrifices that people have made, but about the work we have left to do to protect them and ensure they are taken care of going forward. Thank you, Madam President. I ask my remarks to be printed in the Journal.